Hello and welcome to GC Conversations, a show where we bring in faculty, staff, alumni, friends, community folks, all things Georgia College. And welcome to NBC Studios here in your Charter Cable channel. I'm Wendell Staten, your host. Today we're joined by Georgia College graduate and Mayor of Millersville, Richard Bentley. Richard, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Wendell. It's my pleasure and my honor to be with you.
Well, good. I appreciate that. Glad to have you. We got a lot to talk about in a little bit of time.
Sure.
And as the show says, it's GC Conversations, and we've been conversing here before the show. And one of the things we talked about was just you being a graduate. You grew up here, but
sure.
Tell us about your Georgia College experience.
Wow, are you sure we have enough time to do that? Okay.
I talked to the registrar. Okay?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, it was certainly non-typical and non-traditional.
Okay.
I did not go to college right out of high school. In fact, when I graduated, and I won't give any years, but when I graduated, money was a little bit short and scarce when it came to financial aid for colleges. So I went to work.
And you grew up here in Millersville?
I grew up here. I was born and raised here, graduated from Georgia Military College High School.
Okay.
And really had planned on going to Georgia College, and it was just one of those life situations. And I think the good Lord puts us in those situations. Maybe I wasn't ready to go to college yet.
Sure.
So, but obviously was ready to get married. I married my high school sweetheart in 1984, and I went to work for a local bank. And they had a program that if you made an A or B, they would pay 100% of your tuition. You'd be responsible for the books and that kind of thing. And I went ahead, it was in a management program, so I went ahead and applied for that. And they let me go to college, so I went to Georgia College. The only bad part about that is I had to take what they approved. Right. So the first class that I took was an accounting class, and that was almost my college career right there. Because banking and accounting entries are opposite. Right. Credits are not credits, debits are not credits, and I had a really hard time with that. So I went back and begged the HR lady if she would let me take something that I enjoyed and liked, and maybe put it toward a management degree, fit that in the bank some kind of way. And she agreed to do that. I came back and I took a political science class and made an A in it. So that kept me going. I said, well, maybe I can do this. So, I took the economics and the finances and that type of thing. But I really enjoyed that political science class so much that I taught them in. They knew I was not going anywhere, not taking advantage of them, that I wanted to switch my major, and I switched it to public administration, particularly because I couldn't take enough political science classes at night. Right. And I think it is something important for people to know that I did do all but one or two of my classes in the evening. Right, I would take those long 4-hour classes 2 days a week during the summer to try to make up time, and then go at night and that kind of thing. As I said, I was married at that time, so. And we were on the quarter system at the time. At that time, we were on the quarter system, sure, and we were the colonials. Yeah, so that's right. Back to the colonials. So I just kept going and and went as I could, and just tried to say that if I keep doing it a little at a time, I'll finally get there. And interestingly, Mike Digby, who's retired now from Georgia College, was my advisor. And I can remember a conversation with him, and he said, boy, you sure are going about it the hard way, the long way. And I said, well, it's the only way I can do it right now. But in between, changed banks, not necessarily careers, but had a son and was not quite finished. And wanted to, it was something that I really wanted. First one in my immediate family to have a college degree. Right. So I continued on even with that, had opened up a business or bought a business in 1997 and finally graduated in 1999. Okay. Now, I understand taking that long even between, I should be a doctor by now. But I think, the moral to the story is for folks out there, it's not too late to go back to school. It's not too late if you had a dream that's going to take a college degree to get where you are. I encourage you to do it because where there's a will, there's a way. Well, you certainly had great perseverance through there because that's about a 15-year trek, if I did the dates right, somewhere in there. With a 3-year off. I usually make it sound a little bit better and say I was on the 10-year plan instead of it. But again, I think staying at home or having night classes, and of course you're married, you got a child, you got a career, and but fantastic. So you started as a colonial, you graduated as a Bobcat, and during that time the mission of the university changed as well. So you've seen the campus
as a youth to you being mayor now changed quite a bit.
I really did. Went to the quarter to the semester.
Yeah.
Went from the Colonials to the Bobcats. We went from a traditional 4-year senior college to a liberal arts college,
Right.
the only public liberal arts college in the state, which is something of a bit of pride for us.
Yeah.
But what really interested me was that transition that we went to. They were offering classes that were non-traditional classes.
Right.
I can remember Dr. Bob Wilson teaching a class on the 60s. Now, of course, I was born in the 60s, but certainly didn't get to experience all that. But it was, and of course, I was the oldest one in the class too. I guess I could relate a little bit more. But it was a different type of class. It was one of those Maymesters.
Yes.
And I tell him all the time, that was, some classes stick out to you, and that was one that really interested me. Took one on the Supreme Court and took one on the presidency, which interested me.
Yeah.
And that counted toward my degree, even though they were just classes that I was interested in. So I think that's what a liberal arts education does for you. Small classes, classes that are not necessarily taught somewhere else.
Right.
And it, I think, brings out the best in the student. So.
Well, as I listened to you, you're talking a lot about political science, public administration. You had these Supreme Court classes, president. You obviously had an interest in politics.
Right, yeah.
And what do you know? Lo and behold, you end up being the mayor here.
Right.
Talk a little bit about your public service, and you obviously had a thirst for this at a relatively young age. How did this come about?
Well, I tell people all the time, you should develop a servant's heart. If we don't serve each other in a positive way, and help each other, because all of us are going to need help at some point in time. And that includes the whole community. And that was the driving force. I mean, we don't do this for the money.
Right, that's right.
I had a group of kids in for Constitution Week just yesterday on a proclamation, and I always get these questions. The teacher went ahead and told them, no, he didn't drive up in the limousine, and one of them did say, and I said, no, and not rich, don't live in a big house, and that kind of thing. And sure enough, one of them said, do you really make a lot of money? And I said, no, ma'am, I sure don't. But it's the altruistic attitude of wanting to, and a desire to want to leave your community better than the way you found it, so to speak. And it takes good people in order to do that, and good people have to get out and run for office. They have to sacrifice. There's a certain amount of that. And it will be its own reward at some point in time. And I tell people all the time, the real reward for me is when somebody comes to the office and says, I really need your help on this, and I can help them.
Right.
That's when it makes it worthwhile.
Sure, absolutely.
With all the other things that go with it. One other thing I would like to tell you,
Yeah.
and this is always something that I say, the difference between a politician and a public servant is a politician earns his living out of the office.
Right.
A public servant has other means.
Correct.
I'm a public servant. So.
We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the type of government here in Millersville, the council system, how that works. So we'll be right back with Mayor Richard Bentley here on GC Conversations.
I heard someone ask the other day, how did that law ever pass? But they never even contacted their legislator. My teacher says legislators are concerned about what people think and want to hear everyone's opinion, even mine, and I can't even vote yet. People ask, where's my voice? To me, it's easy. You can call, write, or email your elected officials anytime and let them know how you feel about an issue. Am I missing something?
Learn how you can make your voice heard by logging on to representativedemocracy.org.
What you doing, Dad?
My favorite thing.
Really, Dad, what are you doing?
Paying bills. Every month a stack of them come, just as regular as the rain.
What's this one?
That's a special one, son. I pay it first.
How come?
It's money for my retirement account. I put some money aside each month just like I was paying a bill.
Wouldn't you rather buy something?
I don't want to work forever, and I don't want you to have to support me in my old age. In a way, I'm buying peace of mind. I'm on the installment plan.
Welcome back to GC Conversations. I'm Wendell Staten, along with Mayor Richard Bentley. Richard, we left off talking a little bit about city government and municipal government. Talk to me about, tell me how the local government system here works. Well, it's called the council-mayor form of government.
Council manager.
Council manager, excuse me.
Right.
Talk about that. Just how does that work for folks out there? Maybe.
Yeah, it probably good to just say that there are different kinds of local government. You have a strong mayor, weak council, which typically means that the mayor, even though the mayor may have an administrative assistant or someone they call a manager or a COO or something like that, would actually be the person that hires and fires personnel, runs a good bit of the day-to-day operations of the city, and the council would be something similar to what people would recognize the General Assembly or Congress being, which would be policymakers and,
Right.
and so forth. That creates, as you might surmise, a little bit of tension between the mayor and the council, because
Right.
council members are elected too.
Right.
And
Sure.
it sometimes is not the best fit, and particularly for smaller communities. Atlanta and Macon have strong mayors,
Okay.
weak council forms of government.
Right.
They also run partisan,
Okay.
which most small local communities do not. Our county commission does, city council and mayor does not. We're nonpartisan. You also would have a strong council weak mayor,
Right.
where it's basically opposite. The mayor is basically a ceremonial position. They may be the person that, or might not be the person that signs particular documents or that kind of thing. But in my view, the best form of government is the council manager form of government, which we enjoy here in Milledgeville. And what that means is our council voted to change our charter some years ago to hire or create and then hire a city manager to manage the day-to-day operations. No longer was the mayor's position in charge of hiring, firing personnel or choosing personnel or
Right.
department heads or that type of thing. To me, it makes a more professional organization. You've got somebody, and you have the opportunity as a council to choose someone who is trained and experienced and is capable.
Right.
And they work for mayor and council, not for either or.
Correct.
So in my view, it makes it a lot more fiscally responsible, because that person obviously, it's his responsibility and he's going to be held accountable.
Right.
Even though we're held accountable to our constituents, he's held accountable to us or she
Right.
in making sure that the community is run in a very responsible manner.
And talk about just the local government just in general. I'm a citizen out there, and I've got an idea, or I've got a concept, or I've got an issue, whatever it may be. How do I get that to where council can look at this? Well, give me the process. Kind of take me back to Schoolhouse Rock, and I'm only a bill on Capitol Hill.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
It's the same thing here in local government. How does that work? How do I get my ideas heard?
It's kind of funny when you ask me how local government works. There are a lot of people out there that say it doesn't. But no, what's interesting about this is, and I tell groups all the time, especially those folks who are 18 or just turned 18, and for them to register to vote. Because when we make a decision at this level,
Right.
it affects everybody directly.
Absolutely.
When the General Assembly, our representative and senator, makes a decision, it might affect us,
Yeah.
or it might not. Rarely does it affect us directly when the president or Congress makes a decision. So what's more important?
Yes.
This particular government, your local government, is vastly important in order to make your life as good as it can be. So if someone has a problem, we're right here
Right.
for them. Every district, we have 6 districts in the city of Milledgeville, so that means every neighborhood has a representative. If someone has a problem, they are certainly encouraged to call their city councilman, and then that city councilman will either bring it up to me or the manager.
Right.
And we would get it in front of them for discussion. You can call me directly,
Yeah.
and that happens.
Right, sure.
A good bit, and I'm pleased and proud of the fact that people know that I'm accessible. They can call me, and then I'll try to help them as much as possible. But that's basically how it would get in front, and then what would happen is typically we would take this up, and this is not necessarily the way everybody does it, but in Milledgeville, we would take up an issue like that is more service related and
Right.
discussed in a work session, so that
Yeah.
all of us can sit around the table instead of it being necessarily broadcast, whatever, but sit around the table and actually work on the problem.
Right. Yeah.
And we found that works extremely well because everybody's there, everybody has an input, and then of course we can take the vote in our regular session or vote on that one if it's a service delivery deal. But,
I couldn't agree more with the local government, the impact that they have, and so again, reminder to everybody watching to get involved. I mean, that's the bottom line here. Get
That's
involved
exactly
and make your community better. So,
Sure.
talking about our community, kind of changing gears a little bit. I've been here not quite 2 years, and I just tell you, we've got some great things here, and I always say this: we've got to be one of, if not the only one, we're one of very few to have 3 institutions of higher learning that are all public in nature.
Right.
within about a 1.5 mile radius.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. We've got the Oconee River, Lake Sinclair. We've got warm climate. We've got everything. And so let's talk about just all the good things that we've got going on here in Milledgeville.
Yeah, you know, we always like to do that, to get away, to kind of deter the problems that we've had, or the attention away from it over the last couple of years. I mean, we have been affected, in my opinion, and some of the other folks that I've talked to, probably more than most. Mm-hmm. And it's to our credit that our citizens are still highly motivated. Yeah. They're still encouraged. They have been very enthusiastic about some of the things that they're working on, and we've tried to let them know that we are working on things. It gets extremely frustrating when you have 2,000 or 2,500 people who are out of work, and these are people that since I'm from here, that I've known for years and years. Sure. And to have the situation with the state government the way that it is, we're not used to this. This is unprecedented for us. Yeah. So we go back and take those very positive things that we have. We still have a large state government here, a state presence, in particular with state properties. Right. So we're trying to make use of that. Having said that, we're in the process of building a new prison. Right. That will employ 300 plus people. Mm-hmm. They are actually going to start their expansion, which they were able to do, have 1,500 inmates coming in roughly between December and probably March, but they can expand to 2,500, which means more jobs. That's right. But that is a public-private partnership between GEO, private company, and the state government. Right. But we had 5 prisons anyway. Yeah. Yeah. 4 of which have been closed. So you talk about those type of things, why somebody would have come here. Right. Very rarely, you are correct, very rarely, I think, would you see a community the size of Milledgeville, roughly 18 to 20,000 people, having 3 colleges. Yes. And, you know, and when we go back to the fact that I was a non-traditional student, you look at someone now who has maybe reached middle age and really wants to do something different, whether they were forced to by working at one of the manufacturers or not. Look at the options that they have. No question. You can go to the technical school and take a certain trade, and then you might want to go to GMC to take a business class, because you might want to open your own business. Right. Then you may want to transfer to Georgia College to continue it. You can do that here in Milledgeville. You don't have to go out of town to do that. I can't imagine another community that has those options. I would agree with that. Right. We're up against a break. We're going to come back and talk more about all the great things going on in Milledgeville here on GC Conversations.
Hi, I'm Chevy Checker. A new twist in the law makes it easier than ever to save on your Medicare prescription drug plan costs. So what are you waiting for? Go to socialsecurity.gov and apply for extra help. It's easier than learning the twist.
Is that thing getting closer? Look how high that thing's going. Look out there, look at the debris.
Give me the camera.
No, just drive, I've got it.
Zoom in, zoom in.
I can't believe this is happening.
Oh, the size of that thing.
It's everywhere.
Are you getting this?
Yeah, I've got it. What was that?
It's the National Guard.
How'd they get here so fast?
I don't know.
Pull over, pull over.
Do you have what it takes to head into the heart of the storm? Check out NationalGuard.com.
Welcome back to GC Conversations, our final segment with Mayor Richard Bentley. And Mayor, we talk a lot about all the great things we have in Milledgeville, and you know, just off the air right now, we were just talking about how we've got 3 different schools, colleges with different missions, and how you can do everything, and you don't have to drive far to do it. But I want to shift gears a little bit now, and as we continue to talk about resources and things that would attract someone to come to Milledgeville, let's talk about retirement. If I'm out there and I'm watching, and maybe I'm up in a colder climate, and I see all the good things down here. I've got a very affordable housing, a surplus of land here, a great climate, all the educational needs, all the natural resources with a river, a lake. I mean, we've got a lot of things going on. I know this is one of the things that we're talking about in terms of helping as we move to the next decade as possibly retirement. Right, it's something different,
you know, a different direction. And of course, we got great people. Yeah. You know, and 7 out of the 10 most desired destinations for retirees are college communities.
Right.
And since we've already mentioned the fact that we have 3 colleges,
We got that covered.
even with the tech school, that alone makes us
Sure.
a place that someone would want to come to retire. So what we have done in looking at the things that we've lost and we're not going to get back.
Right.
I mean, let's one of the hardest things is to convince ourselves.
Right. Sure.
It's not going to happen. Central State Hospital is not going to be what it used to be. We don't manufacture in this country enough to say that Ring would come back or some other manufacturer would go there, even though we are going to target that building for that. Can't wait on that.
Right.
But what we can do is offer ourselves up to people who want to come here and retire.
Yeah.
One of the intangibles that nobody really mentions, unless we do this as a part of our advertising, we're above the gnat line.
Right.
You know, you don't have gnats
Right.
here.
That's
So when you
correct.
talk about climate, I mean that's even better. And we tease other communities about that have this. But we have recently acquired a national designation as a certified retirement community, which opens doors for us to obtain maybe grant money or at least get the notoriety of being a destination for retirees. We have a lot of state property that will not be utilized the way that it was before. It lends itself to be possibly an area that we could designate and develop for retirees. There's a statistic that says that one retiree is worth 2.5 manufacturing jobs simply because of the socioeconomic position that they're in, the experience they bring in. And what's best part of that for me is we could really use these people as entrepreneurs when they come to our community.
No question. They bring the entrepreneurial spirit. They bring prior success. They also bring more volunteerism in our community, and we've got an influx of human capital and intelligence that is just incredible. Talk about one of the areas we talked about just past Oconee Regional is a possibility on a master plan that of some.
This is the YDC property,
Yeah.
and it was actually in the master plans you're talking about is the roster plan that was
Right.
developed and commissioned in 2008. It actually designated there are 400 acres or so out there, maybe a little less. You don't need that much,
Right.
and a lot of it is not as level as the other. But it designated that as a possible use for the community, for private use.
Right.
I tend to think that with its proximity to the hospital and its proximity to the mall and even Georgia College,
Sure.
the bypass, that kind of thing, there again lends itself to a great possibility of being something that we could look at as a retirement community. So we've talked about that. The problem with that is obviously is going to be the private investment.
Right.
But we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to seek out that. It may not be there. It may be somewhere else.
Right.
But the community itself, at least we have a plan. Is
Right.
the way we look at it to
Yeah.
try to help with that.
Well, absolutely, and I think again, as I think about retirement,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
coming up quicker
Closer
than
than
I
it
would
was,
like.
yeah.
I certainly want to retire around a college community.
Right.
I've always been in a college community, so that's neat.
Right.
I want to retire where it's warm.
Right.
And I want to retire where I can get somewhere. If I want to get to some bright lights in big city in a short amount of time,
Right.
I got good roads here, so
Right.
we've got just a ton of
It's
opportunities.
perfect. You can get to the coast or the mountains
Yeah.
in equal amount of time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's perfect.
We've got a great opportunity, so I look forward to hearing more about that. And I just want to thank you for coming on with us today
Certainly,
and visiting
certainly.
and talk a little bit about Milledgeville. And certainly the university has benefited from the city, and the city has benefited from the university and these 6,500 students that we have.
Right.
And even though we like to call our students our own, they may not be here but for just 4 years, but hopefully we want a lot of them to stay as long as they can.
And we want them to know that we're working diligently every day to bring in certain types of industries. We didn't get time to talk about the Central State Hospital thing, but other relationships with different folks that we can bring industries in that actually can utilize their talent, and they can have the option to stay in here.
Well,
That's what we really want to do.
I'm going to extend this segment for 2 minutes to talk about Central State Hospital.
Okay.
All right, because that was my fault.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. And the reason I wanted to bring it up
so
is
talk
because
about that.
I think it's going to be such a great thing for us. Anyone who wants to obtain a copy of the master plan can see this. This was
Right.
actually something that came out in that process. And Dr. Leland, while she was here, really took this on as a task of her own. The idea is to turn the main part of the campus, the Powell Building and some of the larger, older hospitals, into a clinical research facility with an emphasis on the delivery of rural health care. There are many, many communities in and around Milledgeville and South Georgia in particular that have no health care whatsoever. This will not only allow the training of doctors, well, I should say not the actual doctors, but the nurses, RNs, CNAs, technicians, and those kinds of things. But it would deliver that needed health care to those folks. And us being centrally located, as we've mentioned before, makes it easier for them to get here. And that's in this day and time, that's a great concept. But it helps Georgia College and it helps the community because we're now, we have a very well-respected nurses program.
Absolutely.
Here. But this enhances that. This allows it to grow and to attract more students. But it also gives them an opportunity to stay here and develop themselves and some of the other things. And having that particular development, in my opinion, will spur other development, just as the Rosser plan had predicted. So we are working hard. We've already gone through a couple of different phases of that and talking to the governor's office and then to the properties people. I'm not able to go to Washington this week, but we are sending our city planner and our city manager to speak to some of the federal agencies along with our congressman, our current congressman, Congressman Barrow, to seek funds that we can do that. So I think that's going to be just a great addition, and hopefully that thing that sends our community back on the road to recovery.
And again, a great partnership between our educational institutions here and our citizens here. And then the other thing here is that rural health care is different than it's a different delivery system.
Right.
And we've got the advantage of having the state property, as you talked about, and using our resources to our benefit.
That's right.
We're going to close it up with that. Richard, thanks for being here.
Thank you,
Good
Wendell.
speaking with you.
It's my pleasure.
For Richard Bentley, I'm Wendell Staten. Thanks for joining us on GC Conversations.